I want to teach kids the Christian truth. If you want to reach those kids on the street, then you gotta do a rap to a hip-hop beat.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is actually a new series that I'm starting. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it EU4 How To, where it is basically a short series. I don't really know how many episodes it is going to have, where I cover some of the fundamental game mechanics within EU4 and explain it to you, as I've noticed that there's quite a lot of new players who really want fundamental explanations for the mechanics in the game. People still want guides, of course, but I've also have seen quite a bit of requests for guides or just videos explaining some fundamental mechanics. So I'm going to go ahead and start this series so I can explain these mechanics to you. Today, for the first episode in this series, I'm going to be explaining to you how the Curia controller works and how you can utilize the Curia controller to become very powerful, reduce regress expansion, and things like that. I just want to say, right off the rip, this is not a guide for the Papal States. I have a guide for the Papal States, and you can definitely go ahead and watch that if you're interested. It is for 1.34. However, the strategy that I show you in that guide works flawlessly now. It's a strategy that's worked for quite a long time, honestly, and the Papal States is a fantastic tag in Italy. So if you want a guide for that, you can go ahead and watch it. I think I'll have it linked in a card or linked in the description. So go ahead and check that out if you want a guide for that. But this is not a guide for the Papal States. Instead, I'm going to be showing you how you can utilize the Curia. But before this video begins, don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Did you know that there's about an 83% chance that you're not subscribed, yet you're still watching my videos? Very strange. So do us both a favor and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of summer. With that out of the way, let's jump into the Curia. As a newer player, you might be confused at what the Curia actually is and how you can actually use it for yourself. This is a video that of course is going to be geared towards newer players, so if you're someone who is pretty good at the game, this video is honestly not for you. You might find it quite a bit boring. This is geared towards newer players. So with that in mind, you might not know fully what the Holy See is. Yes, you know what the Papal States is. Yes, I'm sure you know about the historical stuff behind it and stuff like that. However, you might not know exactly what the Curia controller is in EU4. Now, what the Curia controller is in EU4 is basically, it is the person who is the Pope. Now, you might be confused. Isn't that the Papal States? Well, no. The Curia controller is separate from the Papal States, and I'll go ahead and say that again to make it more clearly. The Papal States is not always the Curia controller. So you might be surprised to know that if you're playing as the Papal States, you don't have a 100% chance to be the controller of the Curia. So yes, you will still be called the Pope. Yes, you'll still be called Pope, whatever, but you won't technically have access to the different things that the Pope can do. And you might be wondering what those things the Pope can do, and I'll go ahead and show you what that is in just a minute. But I just want to make that very clear, that just because that you are the Papal States, that doesn't mean that you are the Curia controller. The Curia controller is separate. Now, speaking of which, you might be wondering, well, what is the Curia controller? It's basically the person who has control over the Holy See, and the way you maintain control over the Holy See is by investing papal influence, and the more papal influence you invest, the higher your chance goes up of becoming the Curia controller. Now, you might be wondering, well, what are the upsides of being the Curia controller? The upsides of being the Curia controller are absolutely massive. As you can see, you get minus 10% stab costs, an extra diplomat, more yearly prestige, minus 20% advisor costs, extra advisors, amazing tech costs, extra diplo rep, extra leaders without upkeep, and my most favorite one of all, minus 25% aggressive expansion impact. You don't realize how huge that is. That is absolutely massive. The minus 10% diplomatic annexation cost and some extra clergy loyalty equilibrium as well. And you also can take these diplomatic actions. You can call for a crusade and you can excommunicate. And the way you excommunicate people is very simple. You basically just click on the country that you want to excommunicate, and the way you can find which country you can excommunicate is you go here to the production interface and select the papal actions. Of course, this tab will only exist if you are the Curia controller, and you just select the nation that you want to excommunicate. Typically, if you are the Pope in 1444, you can typically excommunicate Provence, sometimes Teutonic Order, and sometimes even Savoy. Savoy. It kind of just depends on who the Pope hates, and Provence, because they want the province of Avignon, and the Pope wants the other provinces here as well. So the way you just excommunicate them is you just go here, and basically, as you know, it'll excommunicate the ruler. It doesn't actually excommunicate the nation. Whenever that ruler dies, the excommunication can be lifted briefly. It will give casus bellis against everyone who borders them. And you might have seen this second one where it is call for a crusade, which I'm sure many people saw that and got very excited, especially when they were new players. I know I did. And the way you do this is, again, you just go to the Papal Actions interface, and you can select basically any heathen nation that you know about for a crusade. So you can't obviously go ahead and call for a crusade against the Muslims in India since you don't know about them. You can only call for crusades against nations that are heathen, ones that you know about. Typically, the biggest targets for the AI are the Ottomans, Tunis. I've seen crusades against Morocco. I don't think I've ever seen any against Granada, but typically, most of the time, the crusade will be either against the Ottomans or the Mamluks, usually the Ottomans, just because the people that are the Curia controller, usually Austria or someone like that, or Spain, will typically hate the Ottomans. The way you do that is you basically just select the nation here. I'm going to select the Ottomans, and it will give a CB against all Catholic countries against you, as well as some very significant bonuses that you can see right here on screen, which are really, really cool. Another thing that the Pope can do is actually appoint cardinals. So if you are a new player, you might have already seen the notification where so-and-so province is now home to a cardinal. We now have X amount of cardinals. Basically, cardinals can be assigned to any Catholic nation in any province that has at least 10 development, and no nation can have more than 7 cardinals. So oftentimes you'll see nations that have a lot of dev and also ones that are very big, which is France, Castile, England, sometimes Austria, although England tends to fall behind, so it typically is between France and Castile, who will start to hoard a lot of the cardinals as the game goes on. Also, you of course have quite a few in Italy. You have one here in Florence, as Florence is super high dev, and you have this one here in Venice, who is also super high dev. And again, the way that you do that is you just go here, and you can choose any country as long as they have at least 10 dev and have good relations with you, although you can actually give them to people who don't really like you, which is really neat. So you basically just select any nation. I'm going to select Sweden up over here. I'm going to go appoint a cardinal, and this will give you actually papal influence towards being the next Curia controller, which I find to be very interesting. So a lot of times what I like to do is if I want to maintain the Curia, if I'm the Papal States or someone else, and I want to assign a next cardinal, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll just keep assigning cardinals, especially as my guy gets older. But what you need to keep in mind is that also gives these nations extra papal influence. So while you're getting some papal influence up front, that being 10, you're actually making it slightly harder for yourself in the long run, as other nations will be able to put papal influence into becoming the next pope, and you will start to struggle. So don't assign too many cardinals, or you might find yourself struggling for your own papal influence against the AI. So of course, always use the Curia Treasury. I don't know why you'd like to use your own money. Always use the Curia Treasury and go ahead and do that. As you can see, it gives them a cardinal, and like I covered before, all the cardinals are listed on the map here. It's these guys with hats, and it also gives the nation a plus 50% relation, which is really cool. Going back to the Holy See interface, there are other things that are listed here. Of course, we have the Curia Coffers, which actually scales with the influence of clergy in your nation, and then we have this. We have the papal influence, which you actually gain from your opinion against the Pope, which is actually really nice. So what you want to go ahead and do is, if you are trying to get a ton of papal influence, what you want to do is, of course, go here and buy indulgences for your sins. If you can't afford it, then of course you can go ahead and take out a loan against it. You buy indulgences for your sins, which will give you plus 1 yearly papal influence, which is fine. But what that does, and what is something that I think a lot of people don't really realize, is that you gain more papal influence passively from having high relations with the Pope. So now we're getting plus 48% due to the Papal State's opinion us, and you can actually get an extra 100% papal influence yearly if your relations with the Pope is maxed out 200. So that's really cool. Always be improving with the Papal States, as number one, you don't want to be excommunicated. Number two, it basically will make it so that you are gaining more papal influence passively. And another thing that I wanted to cover is, if you are ever excommunicated, I'll go ahead and go to Provence here. As you can see, we are excommunicated. If you ever get excommunicated by the AI, sometimes sometimes it can happen, and even if you're playing a big nation like France, if you upset the Pope can excommunicate you. If you are ever excommunicated and you want to get rid of the excommunication, just go ahead and take out a loan and just buy indulgences for your sins. The AI cannot excommunicate you, or the Pope cannot excommunicate you if you buy indulgences. As you can see, you go ahead and just buy the indulgence, and you can wait a month. So we'll just go ahead and let a month go by here. And there we go. The excommunication has been lifted. We are no longer excommunicated, as you can see right here. Instead, we have the bought indulgence modifier. Going back to the Holy See, the thing that we also covered here is if you are the Pope, you will have different things than someone who is not the Pope. So as you can see, if I switch over back to France, you have these things. There's no ecumenical council. However, if you are the Curia controller, then you can go ahead and call the ecumenical council. Basically, it will give you some papal influence up front. Again, if we are the Curia controller, it is sometimes difficult to become the next pope. That's kind of a crutch, I think, that the game has implemented so that you kind of have some variation. Whoever is the Curia controller can actually be forced to work for it. However, you can go ahead and call the ecumenical council, which is this button here. The next button is, of course, your chance to become the Curia controller. And like I said, you just spend money, and you can actually spend money to gain your own cardinals. This is something that's really cool that the Curia controller can do, and it's typically the Papal States at the start of the game, is you can actually spend money for exchange of corruption. This does scale up for how many that you have, so do keep in mind this will become more and more expensive as time goes on to give yourself a cardinal. So as you can see, we don't have any cardinals as the Papal States, but then you go ahead and put one, and look, now we have a cardinal in Rome, which will give us more papal influence passively, and then you can again use this to call the Ecumenical Council to give us more papal influence. The thing at the top left of the Holy See interface is your reform desire. So as you can see, as it says right there, this is how much reform is desired in the church. Now, this is something that you want to be watching, as the Protestant Reformation will not start until this hits 100%. So as the game goes on, this will actually build. It will typically build just through time going past and also through events such as this. And all of these things combined will make the Reformation desire go up. However, if for whatever reason you want to delay the Reformation, then you can do this to investigate heresy. However, do keep in mind that it is very, very expensive, and the Reform desire will just grow by 50%. It doesn't really matter anyway. If you keep putting it down, the Reform desire can start growing by like 100 or 150%. It's actually pretty crazy. So I'd recommend never really do this. You're only going to delay it at most by a year or two. You're really not going to delay it by that much. And again, it only starts to grow more the more you investigate heresy, so do keep that in mind. And the next thing that I wanted to show you from the Holy See interface is the Golden Bulls. So a lot of people I don't really think understand how these Golden Bulls work. Well, the way the Golden Bulls work is basically whenever a pope dies, and I'll go ahead and show you that right now. So you can see I killed that pope by typing die. Whenever a new pope is elected, you can go ahead and pick a Golden Bull. And these Golden Bulls give you various modifiers. It costs 400 ducats from the Curia Treasury, but we don't worry about the Curia Treasury. We get so much as at the start of the game, and pretty much throughout the game, the clergy owns so much land, and you can select these Golden Bulls which give various other things. So you have this one for the Curia powers cost. Honestly, I'd say really only take this if you are just using the blessings, but then at the same time, remember, if you are the papal controller, you can't really use the blessings, so I don't really know why you would take this one. This one is really good, especially when you enter the Age of Absolutism. The -2 unrest in Catholic provinces is really good, as that's on top of the tolerance of the true faith. This one is okay. Honestly, this is probably one of the best one right here. But again, this has to go after the Age of Reformation. This is only later in the game. And then you have this one right here, which is the institution embracing cost and institution spread. Typically, the AI will take this once the AI is starting to embrace stuff. I'm sure you've seen this Golden Bull be picked. And then you have this one right here, but this is only applicable if either the Emperor is the controller of the Curia or if the Papal States is in the HRE. And then you have this one right here, which is typically what the AI will pick. It doesn't pick this one. I've honestly only seen the AI pick these two. I've actually never seen the AI take any of these. It would be really cool if I saw the AI pick something else. But typically, the AI will either pick this one if they're trying to embrace a institution, or this one. Honestly, these are typically the ones you should be picking, unless, of course, this one is available for the aggressive expansion impact. Very, very powerful. And once the Pope dies, you can just go ahead and select one after all the ones that I covered. I'm just going to select this one right here. You only can select it once. once, so do keep that in mind, that if you have a pope who lives to be 70 and an institution pops up, you can only select this once a new pope is elected, so do keep that in mind. Don't select one that's pretty terrible and then be like, oh no, I need to change it, because you won't be able to change it until a new pope is elected. This has been an EU4 how-to video for the Curia controller. Let me know if you would like to see me continue this series. This is a series that I've started kind of after popular requests. People have kind of been asking me to do guides for various game mechanics for quite a while. I've gotten requests for aggressive expansion, I've gotten requests for army comp, I've gotten requests for estate guides, and things like that. So if you'd like to see that, definitely leave a thumbs up on this video, as I always use the thumbs up mechanic to kind of know what people like and what people don't like. So definitely leave a like on the video, and of course don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let me know, would you guys like me to continue this series or not? Obviously, if you want me to continue this series, I will eventually make some videos for stuff like the aggressive expansion, or for the various vassals, or for the army comp, or for the estates meta and things like that. So let me know in the comments, do you want to see more of this series? But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.